Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Mike's Bar and Grill in Berea. I'm Brendan Gulick. This is the Yellow Jacket Athletics Roadshow on BWYellowJackets.com. It's great to be back with you on what will be, I guess, the final Monday in April. How do you like that? The spring is flying by. We've only got a couple more of these shows planned for you the rest of the way, and it has nothing to do with the fact that the Yellow Jackets are going to end their seasons early. In fact, potentially quite the opposite. We've seen some really successful seasons for a couple different athletic programs at BW so far this year. We're excited about their progress and their growth, especially as tournament time is lurking, and looking forward to spotlighting a couple of those programs again this evening. We've also got a couple special guests lined up, as usual. We're going to speak with David Shapiro, who works now for the Center of Innovation and Growth, but he's a former Yellow Jacket student-athlete as a wrestler. And he's going to share with us some great information on some of the internships that a lot of our student athletes are able to do here at BW. We've talked a little bit about some of the opportunities for study abroad and things like that within the last couple of weeks, and I know a lot of our student athletes are really looking forward to summer internships, trying to manage their schedules as best they can to compete at a high level, and then also figure out a way to make sure they can put themselves in a great position to get jobs when they get out of college as well. So David's going to give us plenty of information on what's going on with the Center of Innovation and Growth, or as we often refer to on campus, the SIG. Also looking forward to visiting with Dominic Perella, our assistant coach for the men's lacrosse team, and boy, are they having a great season. How about 11 wins in a row? 12-3 their record. If they come up with another win this weekend, they're going to be the regular season champions and the number one seed in the OAC tournament here this year. Looking forward to a great visit with Dominic. And we'll also speak with Jake Grasso. Jake is the new esports coach on campus, a program that has been around for a little bit in a more of an intramurals, I guess, variety, and finally a chance and an opportunity for someone to come in and lead that program as a coach. He's brand new to BW in that role, and we are excited to learn more about him, the opportunities that he's looking forward to giving his, I guess, technically student athletes, right? Even though they're esports, they are student athletes, and we're excited to see what he's got in store. So that should be a fun visit as well. So David, Dominic, and Jake are guests here tonight. In the meantime, though, I want to give you an opportunity to get caught up on what happened at BW last week. I know we haven't visited with you in a couple of weeks because of the Easter holiday, and you could certainly find out all this information over on BWYellowJackets.com. That's your one-stop shop for the latest information on your favorite teams. But just to give you an idea of what happened at least this past week, Wednesday was certainly a busy day for baseball, lacrosse, and tennis. The baseball team had a doubleheader with Ohio Northern and blew away the Polar Bears twice. 11-2 in Game 1 and 12-2 they beat up on Ohio Northern in Game 2. So a fun day for the Jackets over on Fisher Field. Yellow Jacket ladies tennis team with a really good performance down at Muskingum, a 7-2 victory overall. The men's and women's lacrosse teams had their big games against John Carroll on Wednesday night. What a comeback win for the Yellow Jacket men. 9-8 the final across town over at Wasmer Field. It was certainly a tight game late. The Yellow Jackets and Blue Streaks were tied at 7 early in the fourth quarter thanks to a goal from Jake Branton, but the Jackets were down 1 coming into that fourth quarter. They gave up 1 to go down 8-7 pretty quickly after they scored that tying goal. About a minute later, scored a goal to tie it again at 12, and then finally, with just 3.5 minutes left in regulation, able to come up with the game-sealing victory. Olin Ferguson with an impressive goal there. Ian Flynn, the only guy that had multiple goals for John Carroll. There were 3 guys that scored a pair of goals for BW. Jake Nanoski had 2 goals and 2 assists. Of course, Jake Branton had 2, and John Schulte scored a couple goals for the Jackets in that 9-8 win. And, man, that is a monkey off the Jackets' back. They are looking forward to seeing what the OAC tournament has in store. On the ladies' side, not quite the same good fortune. John Carroll ended up beating BW in women's lacrosse on Wednesday night by a final of 17-9. This past weekend, the men's and women's track and field team had opportunities to compete. The women actually went down to Ohio State on Friday, and they competed at the Jesse Owens Classic. But it was all kind of gearing up for Saturday's Sparky Adams Invitational, where the women took 4th out of 13 and the men took 5th out of 12 teams that competed on Saturday. Back to Friday for a moment, though. We don't want to ignore the tennis results. Ohio Northern on both the men's and women's side got the better of the Yellow Jackets, 8-1 for the ladies and 9-0 on the men's side. On Saturday, the baseball team had an awfully high-scoring contest with Mount Union in their first game of the doubleheader. They ended up beating Mount Union 14-12 down in Alliance and followed it up with a 9-5 victory in the second game of that doubleheader. Softball also a doubleheader against Mount Union. They lost the second game 10-4 after dropping a really tight 1-0 contest early on. Softball certainly has a chance to make the OAC tournament. They need wins, and they need a little bit of help here coming down the stretch of the regular season. We'll see how that goes coming up this week. The men's lacrosse team wasn't just satisfied with their big win on Wednesday night. I don't know how to say this nicely. They beat Wilmington 34-2 on Saturday. They were up 15-0 after one quarter. Unbelievable performance. They scored their first goal 8 seconds into the game on Saturday and just absolutely poured it on Wilmington. Again, final score 34-2, and it felt like everybody contributed. A lot of guys that typically haven't gotten a bunch of playing time found themselves all over the stat sheet. Leading goal scorer in the game was Kyler Byerly, who had 5 goals and 5 assists, but 4 for Eric Bechtel. Olin Ferguson had a hat trick. 2 goals in the game for a whole bunch of guys. Jonas Aquila, Keaton Trout, Jake Shorling had 2. Let's see, Ryan Jansen scored twice. Jake Branton, John Schulte, and Rice Leach. Incredible effort from the Yellow Jackets in that contest. They had 47 ground balls compared to 10 for Wilmington. They successfully cleared all 28 attempts. They basically got the ball at will. They won 38 of 39 faceoffs. It took a total of 74 shots in the game in that 34-2 victory. That is as impressive a win as I can remember seeing in Yellow Jacket men's lacrosse history. It's fun to watch that team when they're playing well, and excited about the chance for them to win an OAC regular season championship coming up here soon. The women's lacrosse team also was locked in a pretty high-scoring contest, but ended up falling short at Worcester on Saturday, 20-12. Yellow Jackets on Saturday played pretty well in the second half, but kind of got behind an early deficit and couldn't climb back out of it. They were down 8-2 at the end of the first quarter and struggled to get back in. Sid Chamberlain and Deanna Lucas both had a hat trick, as did Sophia Luma. Caitlin Radek had a couple of goals. Those were the goal scorers, along with Maddie Ray, who scored actually only once on 10 shots total. A little unlike her with her impressive scoring presence this season. On the tennis side, BW beat Marietta for the ladies 7-2, and the Yellow Jacket men's tennis team beat Marietta 8-1 on Saturday as well. So that wraps up Saturday's competitions. Sunday, the men's and women's golf teams were well underway. The men were getting ready for next week's OAC tournament. The women competed in the OAC championships this past week, and they finished 5th out of 9 teams. Let's see, the Yellow Jackets were led by Lauren Nair, who came up with a final 54-hole score of 273. Kelly Linneberry, Leah Metzger, Brooke Newsom, and Morgan Briley also competed for the Jackets, and in that order finished in the conference. Kelly finished tied for 20th. Leah was 22nd, Brooke was 25th, and Morgan Briley tied for 26th. There were a total of 44 players that competed. So the Jackets were, both individually and as a team, just about middle of the pack. Ohio Northern with an impressive showing, and they were able to win on the team side. And let's see, the medalist was Otterbeins' Lindsey Blum and Ohio Northern's Grace Honigford, who both came up with a 54-hole total of 236. The men's golf team finished in second place on Sunday out of 3 teams. They were also down at River Greens, where they'll play in that OAC championship. And the baseball and softball teams had games on Sunday as well. BW's baseball team has continued to hit the ball like crazy. They are breaking team records now with the number of home runs they've hit this season. They won 25-1 yesterday with an unbelievable performance, just blowing away Oberlin. They scored 10 runs in the second inning. Yellow Jackets felt like everybody was contributing. Home runs yesterday from Mitch Macy, Alex Ludwig, Carl Pennington, Bijan Kamlapur, and Bryce Holt. Just absolutely tattooed Oberlin pitching. In fact, Oberlin's starter gave up 8 earned runs on 5 hits, and he only recorded 5 outs. Zachary Bayfield, who came in for Oberlin next, gave up 6 runs on 5 hits, and he only recorded 4 outs as Dylan Snyder picked up his first win of the season for the Jackets on the mound. So it continues to be an impressive group. BW Baseball has much more on their mind than just the OAC. I know they're excited about the NCAA tournament, and it feels like at this point, given what they've accomplished, there's really no reality where they're not playing postseason baseball. But everybody is getting ready for this upcoming weekend at Fisher Field. And we'll tell you more about what's to come this week at the end of the show. But just to plug it at the beginning as well, if you are local, please figure out a way on Saturday to come out and support the Yellow Jacket baseball team. They've got the #1 nationally ranked Marietta Pioneers coming to town. Off the top of my head, I think Marietta's 31-3. They're an exceptionally talented team, but so are the Jackets. And it really has the makings of a great doubleheader. First game's at 1 o'clock on Saturday this week, and we certainly hope if you can make it out, at least for a little bit. It's going to be a heck of a matchup. Jackets are a top 15 team in the country, and they're looking forward to a chance to play Marietta because they've been the measuring stick in this conference for a long time. So that's coming up this weekend on Saturday. And the softball team on Sunday to wrap up this past weekend's action. Ohio Northern beat the Yellow Jackets 2-0 and 8-5 yesterday afternoon. So while the men's golf team was supposed to compete today and unfortunately was rained out because it's Northeast Ohio and it's constantly wet here in April, we've had, well, pretty miserable weather, to be honest with you, for most of this spring. Hopefully the tide will turn here in just a little bit. In the meantime, it's time to get to some of our special guests. And so we will we'll invite David Shapiro to come on over from the Center of Innovation and Growth. David, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you making yourself available here this evening. I know that this is kind of an interesting time in your life because you're not that far removed from being a student athlete.
No.
And so there's a heck of a lot of relatability where you know exactly what a lot of these kids are going through, but you've got a chance to kind of help mold their futures a little bit because you're in a position where you're helping a lot of these student athletes figure out how to get that foot in the door with their professional careers. Before we get too much into the SIG side, let's reflect a little bit on your time as a student athlete and what that meant to you. When you think back on your time as a wrestler, what are some of the memories that conjure up for you?
Well, some ones on the mat and off the mat. I think a lot about, to be honest, my first memories go back to my first season. So I was a part of Coach Gibbs' first recruiting class. We didn't win a single match in the OAC. And just think about those like struggles that we had to go through, and a lot of what I think about when I reflect are those like grind days of practice where, you know, kind of just sit there afterwards and like, what did we just do? We just, you know, struggled together, got better, and those types of memories I don't think any athlete ever forgets. But then I also think about those special memories like our first OAC championship in 2016 and getting to finish out my career with that group and then joining the team again in 2017 and going back to back. So those are really special. And then when I was helping out in graduate school, I got to be a part of a couple more OAC titles and help coach those guys. So it's a lot of great memories. Think about different training sessions with Coach Gibbs and some of the times we share together. So a lot of good ones, some somber, but all less. I wouldn't trade my career here for anything. BW is a special place. I always say, you know, I made a life-changing decision coming here, and it couldn't be more true to this day.
I love your perspective, and I think it's really cool that you've been able to see both sides of the struggle when you were early on in your career as a team to now where, I mean, let's just call it for what it is. BW is the standard bearer in this conference, and in a lot of ways, they're the standard bearer in the region. There's some really good wrestling programs nationally, but Baldwin Wallace has become one of the premier programs in the country for the last several years now. Now that you're removed from it, and you can maybe have a slightly different perspective on what it's like as a coaching staff, what is it about Coach Gibbs, Coach Zastro, and the way that they have built something that wasn't just a flash in the pan, hey, we got a couple good kids and we made a run, but it's sustained success year in and year out. Why is that happening?
Yeah, well, first, I think those two gentlemen are two of the best college coaches, maybe in any sport, but in wrestling specifically in the country, regardless of division. I'll stand by that, but two things stand out. They work harder than just about any two coaches that I've seen, so they lead by example. And then, more importantly, they build meaningful relationships with their wrestlers. And, I still have great relationships with both of them, but I can think back to my time as a young wrestler and just what Coach Gibbs gave me day in and day out and gave the rest of the guys on the team. Not every coach, not every college coach, not every wrestling coach is like that and cares so deeply. So it isn't just a job for them, it's their life, and I think that's how it is for many coaches out there. But I mean, wrestling, they live the lifestyle day in, day out, but they also give the athletes the option to build what they want to build. Coach Gibbs always would talk about great teams, or good teams are coach-led, great teams are player-led, and he allowed our group and the groups afterwards to really set our own standard and make sure that we were taking ownership in our destiny and our legacies.
I'm curious how you have been able to take that mindset into what you're doing now, where you're really hands-on with students more than student athletes, but obviously they are student athletes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fact that you're in a role that's more driven toward their academic pursuits. How have you taken what you learned as a student athlete into this job?
Yeah, well, I think something that we talk about regularly, even aside from sports, is a lot of skills that you learn, especially in sport, they're transferable to anything you do, any career. I mean, you and I do it regularly. So what we talk a lot about is having this growth mindset, and I know that's the language that a lot of the athletic coaches use too, but it's this opportunity of I always want to build, I always want to get better, no matter what. Even if maybe I'm going through a little bit of a struggle, I have that perseverance, that grit to get through it, and I'm never just going to stay complacent with where I'm at. So a lot of what we coach our students and our student athletes to do at the Center for Innovation and Growth and the program that I work with is just that, hey, what can you do today or within this task, this project, to get better? Or how can you take whatever we're talking about and transfer it into another area of your life? For us, it's that personal or professional development. And then how do you reflect on it and turn it into maybe your next course of action?
What did the Center of Innovation and Growth do for you when you were a student that drew you to want to be involved in a role like this professionally?
Yeah, so it just gave me an opportunity to realize that some of the things that I was processing and the critical ways I was thinking about sports, I could think about with my professional career or even my academics. And it gave me a space to kind of realize, like, I am not just a student athlete. I think a lot of guys, student athletes, ladies, gentlemen, they can get into this, I came here to be an athlete, a student athlete. And that's really what I'm going to be involved in. And today, or when I was a student there, it really allowed me to get some roots in another area of campus, meet other people, and just learn that, hey, kind of the way I think about sports, I can think about my professional career too. And that's what we love to do is just say how hard you work on the field, on the court, on the mat. If you do that in your professional career, networking opportunities, good things will happen.
So give us an idea for maybe if there are younger student athletes that see this that haven't had a chance to get to know you or SIG in general. First of all, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you or to get more information about what's going on?
Yeah, the easiest way to get a hold is just to stop by, come to the office, or shoot me an email. We have programs that are courses, college colloquiums, discussion-based programs where we talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, character-based leadership. And that's kind of the open door to the Center for Innovation and Growth. And then through that leads to internship opportunities and other just networking events and networking opportunities. So I'd say just be curious, whether it's contacting me, talking to someone like Steve or your coach. Just be curious and come and ask questions and be open-minded about trying something new that might confuse you a little bit and might scare you.
It's pretty good life advice.
Yeah.
Be curious. You never know what you might find when you start looking around.
Yeah, we often say we want curious, creative, and confused individuals.
I like that. Curious, creative, and confused. That's cool. Okay, so I know you wanted to kind of touch on some internships, right? I mean, that's a huge part of your involvement. Give us the 411 on how you help connect student athletes with local businesses or schools or wherever they need to get going.
Yeah, so my role at BW, I'm the growth practice manager at the Center for Innovation and Growth, and I lead a professionally led student-supported business consultancy. So we have about 6 corporate partners that pay an annual fee to sit on our advisory board, to attend university events, but they also pay this fee for growth consulting projects that are led by myself and another faculty member, along with some other professional staff in our department. But more importantly, our 10 student interns are doing this actual work. So they're trained in voice of the customer interviewing methodology, secondary market research, and a company usually comes to us with some sort of problem. Maybe it's a new product they'd like to take to market, and they have us do the research from start to finish, whether that be the secondary market research or the voice of the customer interviewing with their actual customers. So this is a lot of hands-on practical work that we have for students. And what's great is, as I speak about this, it sounds very quote-unquote businessy, right? But our students come from all backgrounds, all academic disciplines. We're an interdisciplinary program. So these students come to us in the summer. They work a 29-hour-a-week internship where they work on these projects. They go through other professional and personal development, presentation coaching, networking, going to local businesses, and just building social capital. But at the heart of it is this project work where they do the project from start to finish. And then typically with COVID, we've been doing a lot of virtual presentations, but we go into these boardrooms and our students are presenting to high-level management and executives on projects for their company. So just things that you take classroom theory and you apply it to real life, you put it on your resume, and you can go out there and say, this is what I did as a college student. I can walk into your company and make a difference.
I love that. I feel like one of the things as a student athlete that I have often heard, and I'm sure you hear all the time and you probably experienced yourself, how in the world do you figure out a way to manage your time with all of the commitment that it takes to compete at a high level and pursue, your other. It's great to hear that you can customize it so much on an individual basis, because I think, sometimes you hear the rhetoric that, we'll make it work for you, but you kind of get wedged into one specific way of doing things. So that's terrific.
What's really great is it's summer dominant. So
Sure.
For the student athletes that we do have in our program, they're up here in the summer. They're living here. They're training. Hopefully they have members of their team with them. That was what was great for me when I was a student athlete. I lived in a house with all of my closest friends. We all went to work. We came home. We went right to the athletic center, got our workout in, and we got to spend the rest of the night together, and that really helped with our team chemistry and culture.
I want to wrap with one other thing here that, we often talk with current student athletes, and we talk to a lot of coaches and certainly a lot of, university personnel. But you're unique in that you're not far removed from competing. You are a student, and now you're on the professional side. You're a Northeast Ohio guy. I'm curious, when you reflect back on your journey to BW, what your expectations were, what your hopes were, how those were fulfilled, assuming that they were fulfilled considering you're choosing to work here, and maybe now how you perceive what you thought it would be. How has that journey gone for you?
Well, it's crazy because I have a funny story. I almost didn't come to BW. I was admitted and deposited into Ohio University just to be a student, and one day I was wrestling my family dog around, and my dad said, you should call up that college coach from BW and see if they have a spot on the team. And I did. I called Coach Gibbs, and 4 days later I was accepted and deposited into BW and signed up for an orientation. So To be honest, I didn't have too many expectations. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I don't think we were naive when we first got here. We didn't know what we didn't know, and I think that's what helped our wrestling program out in the long run. We just kind of went at it like your typical wrestling meatheads would, and train. But it exceeded my expectations. I mean, my closest friends are members of my wrestling team. My closest confidant is Coach Gibbs. So looking back, I wouldn't trade anything for the world. I think what I would say is BW is a place where you make, again, meaningful connections, not only with your coach, with your faculty member, but with staff members as well. And that's what I really enjoy doing, is I can make these connections with students and help them along the way. And maybe we do have a conversation that they're thinking about having with coach, and we can talk through it and just kind of help them navigate those waters. So I would say what was great and what I take most is those relationships that I've made.
That's amazing, and that's what the experience is all about. That's what you hope somebody walks away from investing 4 years of their life into into all the time and energy that you put into your athletics, your academics, your internships, the family sacrifices that go into you go into school. And I just think it's terrific that we've got the kind of program at BW that SIG is able to put together to help foster the growth of these young student athletes. Thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight and for sharing your perspective.
Awesome.
Can't wait to see how things go for you moving forward.
Take care. Good luck.
All right, David Shapiro from the Center of Innovation and Growth here at BW. So grateful for his time here tonight. All right, let's talk lacrosse. Let's bring in our assistant men's lacrosse coach. Dominic Perella joins the show. Dominic, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for spending some time with us.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's a time of year where you're trying to squeeze in practice and games and scouting and all that stuff. And it means a lot that you'd spend some time with us here tonight. Boy, you're coming off a pretty good week.
Yeah.
I would imagine that it's probably easy to get an invitation to come have a conversation after you beat your arch rival in a hell of a fourth quarter and then hang 34 goals on Wilmington on Saturday. Why don't we just start from an overarching perspective? You won 11 in a row.
Right.
I know this has been a wild couple of years. The COVID stuff, the coaching changes, just trying to keep some positive momentum going during a time you feel like you're kind of grasping at anything you can to hang your hat on. What's the morale of the team like? What's the energy around the season and obviously the success that you've had?
Yeah, the morale, the boys are just buzzing right now. 11 straight wins, and I think it goes credit to Coach Tatro and Coach Keeley from last year as well, with bringing in all these guys. And the guys are just, it's a very player-driven team. We don't have to hype the guys up at all before games, before practices. These guys are just bought in. They know every single time we step on the field it's a business trip, and they treat it that way. And they're really just fortunate to be out there playing the games, because they know that, right now we only have 2 guaranteed games left. With one more game on Wednesday and then the OAC playoffs, anything can happen. So they're really excited and really battle-tested right now, and I think that shows with us having 11 straight wins heading into Ohio Northern on Wednesday.
And by the way, Ohio Northern, if you haven't followed along with folks, Ohio Northern's no slouch. This is a really, really good team. They score it okay. Their defense is fantastic, and they've got an 11-3 record on the season. When you're coming off a stretch where offensively things seem to be working for you, and you're going to play against a team that seems to hang their hat on the defensive side of the ball, what is the strategy like during the week building up to that kind of an opponent?
Yeah, I think it's keep going with the guys that are producing for us first and foremost. So we're constantly giving the ball down to Jake Nano and Kyler Byerly, because those two right now are just the best 2 players in the conference. But I also, you got to give credit to our defense, because during practice we go up against the best defense in the conference, and they handle the offense, pretty much the entire time during practice, and they'll let us know about it. But then, when we go out and we play somebody else, the guys kind of take a deep breath and they're like, all right, we can do this. We understand. Let's keep going with the systems that the coaching staff is putting in place. And they're really bought into the game plan, knowing what we want to do with the scout. And then with our scouting reports, we're just trying to find little pieces that we can help win over Ohio Northern. So doing different things, whether it's, different end line plays, getting guys in, doing different pick plays, different things like that, trying to get the ball in our best players' sticks throughout the entire game is really going to benefit us throughout the entire season.
I don't want to go too in-depth because I think some folks that might be watching are just interested in learning more about the program and where it is at the moment. But your man-down defense has been exceptional. And I think when you look back on certain games throughout the course of the year, that tends to be where your eyes gravitate toward on the stat sheet. It's like, hey, when we had our backs against the wall, how did we do? Mm-hmm. And right now, it's not just among the best in the conference. You're sixth nationally in terms of getting out unscathed.
Right.
What kind of energy and emphasis is placed on that particular part of the team when you guys are practicing? Because I have to think that's got to be front and center if you're performing like that.
Yeah. We practice man up, man down, pretty much every single day towards the end of practice. I will say one thing with our defense is no matter how many guys are on the field, those guys just want to win. If it's 6-on-5, 6-on-4, even last year 6-on-3 in the OAC quarterfinal game versus Ohio Northern, they had a 3-man down situation and they came out on top. So those guys know it doesn't matter who they're playing against, how many guys are on the field. Those guys want to win every single battle defensively, and it shows with now that they're sixth in the country in man-down percentage. And you got to give credit to Coach Tatro. He has a million man-down plays that he throws at those guys, and they throw them back at us in practice, and those guys are really, really spearheaded by Coach Tatro and the defensive unit.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please, if I'm directing you in the wrong way, correct me. But I have to imagine that Wednesday, a win at John Carroll is a defining moment of the season. It's the team that has been so difficult to get past in conference competition. It's sort of been 1A and 1B. There's really not a lot of separation between where Carroll's been and where BW's been. But to beat them on the road, to do it in comeback fashion in the fourth quarter, I mean, man, that had to feel pretty good.
Yeah, that one felt really good, and our guys, they wanted that one, and you could tell that they wanted it. They were bought in from the start, and they bought into the game plan, and they came out, and it was like a 1-2 goal game the entire way, whether we were up by 1 or 2 or they were up by 1 or 2, and it was always just that next play mentality. Whether we were up by 2 or down by 2, it was like, hey, let's get the next one, and let's keep it rolling. So, I think for them, they obviously, the guys on the team, they want another OAC regular season title, but I think we're looking more forward to getting an OAC tournament title coming in May.
Well, it's great that you've got big goals that feel really attainable right now. 12-3 on the season, 11 consecutive wins. I don't want to ask you too much about team leadership because we've had a chance to visit with a couple of your guys, and I get the impression that your upperclassmen really set the tone. So why don't we talk about the youth of the team? The guys that maybe on Saturday in particular against Wilmington stuff the stat sheet a little bit, right? When you win by 32 goals, you get a chance to get some guys in the field that maybe don't see the field as often. And I think when you're having a year like this, the guys who don't typically come up with, game-defining moments, don't get the love and attention, are the ones that really build your program because they have to buy into the fact that they were stars in high school.
Right.
And now they're in roles that not going to see a lot of playing time yet. How have you been impressed with the underclassmen on this year's team that have kind of helped you guys put together this sort of campaign?
Yeah, the younger guys on the team are doing a fantastic job. They come into practice every single day with a positive attitude and mentality of that they're going to get better that day. They know maybe on a Wednesday night or Saturday afternoon they might not get that many reps on game day, but they know that they're how to get on the field from a coaching staff standpoint is prove your worth during practice. So those guys are battling every single day in practice and doing a really good job of even watching themselves on film. That's our biggest thing, is trying to get our guys more lacrosse IQ on film, and they can't necessarily watch themselves on game day, but they can watch themselves 4 days a week in practice and figure out how they fit into our offense or defensive systems, where they can bump up on the depth chart. And those guys are doing a really good job of coming into the office with the coaching staff and trying to figure out how they can get on the field for those Wednesday night or Saturday afternoon games.
We had a chance to speak with Tony earlier in the season. after the start where you had lost to a couple of really, really good programs. And the conversation with him was about how you were going to take the lessons you learned from some of those games and apply it moving forward. Now we know it's working because you keep winning games.
Yep.
As you reflect back on losses like the overtime loss to Southern Virginia or playing Denison early on, an overtime win against Grove City, Washington and Lee, those kinds of games, when you look back on them now, what is manifesting that you had been hopeful would manifest based on those early season results?
Yeah, I think, we were definitely battle-tested after those first couple games. Going to first game against Denison, they were a top 20 program and only losing to them by 3. I think a lot of people, when they think of Ohio lacrosse, they think of Denison and Ohio Wesleyan. Now we're competing with Denison in a 3-goal game. And even John Carroll beat Ohio Wesleyan in the regular season as well. So it's nice for us to get battle-tested before we start conference play so we know what we have to work towards and have to fix. And it's also nice to beat a top 20 team in Grove City. And then even today we were checking the rankings after practice, and then we were getting votes for the top 20 in the entire country. So it's really nice to know that, everything that we're doing throughout the entire spring is finally paying off.
Back-to-back one-goal wins over Otterbein and Carroll, and then obviously the big blowout sets up senior night on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock over at Finney Stadium. If you're in town, please go out and support the Yellow Jackets. Dominic mentioned it. There's a chance it could only be 2 games left. We certainly hope that's not the case.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it's trending that way, but you never know, and it's fun to watch a team that seems to be clicking right now. Really proud of what you guys are accomplishing given all the challenging circumstances you had.
Thank you.
And wish you all the best on Wednesday and beyond. Thanks for spending some time with us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dominic Perella, our men's assistant lacrosse coach at BW. All right. So, after a round of applause, chance to bring in Jake Grasso. Jake, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending some time with us. Have a seat.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you making the effort. I know Monday nights sometimes are challenging.
Oh, absolutely. I got to clear my schedule for this. So.
Hey, this is really, really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a long time coming. So.
And a chance to not just be in a leadership role like you are as a coach, but to be in the kind of role where you're sort of launching something.
Yeah. It's
more than just coaching a team. You're kind of launching a program.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah, it's more than just, like you said, coaching. Like over the past 2 years, I've had huge involvement with bringing this to the campus because I thought this is something that BW needed, as there's this whole untapped group of students that have a passion and drive for competing and doing different creativity stuff within the esports realm. But it starts with building the teams and the rosters and getting the chemistry right between the players, reaching out to different directors and setting up different scrimmages. All the backworks that you would see in sports is basically just what's doing around here in esports now. So
I think there's probably a lot of folks that have no idea that esports are part of the college sphere. So from a 10,000-foot perspective, give people an idea of how this works, what a schedule looks like, what a competition looks like, what student-athletes' schedules look like, for folks that are totally just ignorant to how this whole thing works. How do you sort of explain it to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if we go to the scheduling part of it, it's similar to what a typical sports schedule would be. So I'll just take our Rocket League team, for example. They play on Monday nights at 8:30. And with the esports, though, it's not always set to be 8:30. It's very, very flexible. So there might be nights that are playing at 8:30 or 9:30, or sometimes we have deadlines where we have to play by a Wednesday time. So we have a gap in between those periods that can really work around the students' schedules. As for a gaming perspective, how the games are played, each title's different and each amount of players is different. So when we're talking about Rocket League, there's 3 players and you can have up to 2 subs. So that in case if something's not going right, the game plan isn't going the way we want to, we can sub those players in halfway through the matches. And how these matches works are, in the regular season we do best of 5 games, best of 5 matches. And if we win those 3 out of the 5 matches, then we get the win for the season or the win for that day. I mean, the season length typically varies depending on how many schools are actually involved with it. And then we go into playoff where we are right now. Actually, the Rocket League team's in the quarterfinals, and they're doing a best of 7, where we play 7 matches, and if we win 5, then we advance on. And it's very different from each different, we call it titles instead of games. So like if we were to play Madden, I know Madden's a pretty big sport that everyone knows about. They can do like round robin tournaments where you play a schedule of each different opponent from different schools, and the outcome of your record at the end of the season determines whether you move on to a certain region. So it really just depends on what title or game that you're playing in and the structure that league has set up.
I'm going to hit like nuts and bolts things with you.
Absolutely.
So physically, where do you compete?
Physically right now, it's all remote. As we know with COVID and stuff, when we started this thing up, it was more so just gaining interest and seeing who had like a system at home that really wanted to compete and kind of just like develop into like a player/leadership role, because this has been something that where like I have like part-time jobs and like other things I have going on, so I really have to rely heavily on the students to like kind of take that leadership role of like getting practice times together and making sure everyone's there. But yeah, that's what it is. Yep.
How do you recruit?
I mean, basically how you recruit is just saying that the facility that we're about to have is something that's super exciting here that we're about to build, and that it's going to be a family atmosphere where we're supporting one another. So if we have Rocket League competing one night, I want to see Call of Duty. I want to see some games that you guys probably haven't heard of, is like League of Legends, Madden. I want everyone to be in that area because it's going to be a tight-knit group where we're all learning from each other. We're all from different backgrounds, and it's super exciting that we're going to be here to compete at Baldwin Wallace as we're building that family atmosphere where you can freely compete and show your creativity, because in this esports realm, you can show so much creativity with streaming, broadcasting, like graphic design. The options are limitless here.
Where did the love for all of this start for you?
For me, it was when I was younger. My dad, he wasn't a huge gamer, but one of the things that we did, like our pastime, was just like hooking up like the GameCube or
Sure.
Nintendo 64 and playing like Mario Brothers and all that stuff. And then as that kind of went on, I kind of started getting into like the Madden or like the first-person shooter games, and kind of just playing with my friends from there and just competing in different like events and leagues, and that's kind of where it started for me.
So when did it become apparent to you, and folks, if you're just joining us, Jake Grasso, our guest, the new esports coach at BW, when did it become apparent to you that, you know, there was a reality that existed where you could be in this role?
I think it was about 3 years ago where I kind of realized it. As I started off with, I was a sport management major here, and we would go to a ton of different events, such as like the Super Bowl, the college football playoff, and then my interest is when I wanted to start competing in Madden a lot. I'm like, so there's this league called Level Next, and I started competing in that, and starting off branching from there, I'm like, what else is there in collegiate that there is? Because that tournament was solely just based on collegiate. I'm like, there's other titles that I'm interested in that I want to compete in or that I want to be involved in, and that's when I really started doing like a lot more research and connecting with a lot more people, and kind of just getting like that base knowledge of, hey, like, there's opportunities out here to compete in this. It's just that they need people to like get out there and actually want to do it.
How about from the university support side? When you're going to start a new initiative like this, it's more than just, hey, we got a few players and we got a coach. I mean, there needs to be some backing and you know, have a lot of people on board with this. Yeah. Explain, if you can, some of the support that you've gotten from some of the university officials.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started, Dr. Campese actually reached out to me. I don't know if he's ever been on the podcast or not.
Oh, he has. We love Dr. Campese.
Yeah, so he actually reached out to me because I was actually big into streaming. And he's like, is this something that you want to do like down the line? I said, absolutely. Like, this is something, like, this is the community that I want to be in and something I would think I could definitely grow in. But from this community standpoint, when I came back from like getting the backing of it, we had Dr. Campese, Dr. Fear, and a couple other like professors that were really wanting to see this brought to life, and I could see it every time we met in the room that they wanted to see this thing could succeed, and that we were going to reach out to this different person for broadcasting, this different person to see how we can run the event. I ran 2 events so far, partnering with Coaching for Center Excellence with Dr. Beebe. There's people around campus that want to see this thing grow and prosper, and they've all like said that to me and saying that this is something that they're looking forward to bring on campus for not only them but like for the students, because this is a huge opportunity for the students.
Are you overwhelmed?
Overwhelmed? I'm excited. I'm going to go with that. I'm not overwhelmed. I don't think I'll be overwhelmed because you just got to take it day by day.
Sure.
With building things like this, I'm just excited to get started.
What is, when you think about all that you have ahead of you here, first of all, I guess before I get too big picture, timing of a season. What time of the year do you compete?
So that's actually a great question because we don't really have an off season other than the summer, because all titles compete in the fall and the spring.
Okay.
And I believe they start. It varies depending on the league because there's not one set structure for collegiate esports. So the league that we're in now, it's called NACE, and they're probably the biggest like collegiate esports governing body as of right now, where they have season start like 4 weeks after school starts. So probably in the end of August, early September time, and then we go throughout the whole semester, pretty much leading up to finals week in December.
And who else competes in that league?
We actually have some local OAC schools that are in there. Ohio Northern has a great program. Muskingum, Mountain Union started theirs up a couple years ago, and they have a great director over there. The other big school in Ohio, we have Akron.
I've actually seen Akron's facility. It's pretty cool.
Their facility is tier 1. I've been there before, and it is awesome.
Yeah, that was my first, first opportunity to see what all of this was about. I'm like, esports, what's going on? It's Akron's facility. I'm like, this is a real thing.
Yes.
Clearly, like some resources put behind building something really cool.
I think they're coming out with a new, I think it might be a club facility for the people that may not want to be super competitive, but kind of running on their own. I think that's starting for construction in the fall or sometime next year.
So let's kind of wrap with your goals here. And I'm sure you're trying to take sizable bites at the apple at the moment. But what are your goals in how you want to build this thing?
I think the biggest thing for me to start off is just kind of how I want to set the culture. I'm a big family guy, and that's how I want the culture to be. But I want to structure it in a way that also benefits the students. Because the main thing coming into this, I want to make sure that I give the students the most opportunities to capitalize or maximize their experience here with Bottom Laws, whether it's gaming, whether it's going into a broadcasting role or a streaming role, and kind of just mapping out how I can make their paths in this industry a little bit easier instead of them trying to figure out themselves. And then obviously the other goal is giving them a space to where they can freely explore those creative aspirations and competition stuff.
So excited to see how this thing grows for you because I truly think it's pretty cool. I think back to conversations when I was a kid, and I'm sure you've got friends that thought this or said this, where mom was like, "Hey, go outside and play baseball, football, soccer, or whatever, and put the video games away." And now the kids that didn't put the video games away are flying drones for the Air Force on the other side of the world, right? There's a real thing going on here, and I'm excited that BW's put forth the effort into growing this program, and I'm pumped for you, man. This is really, really cool.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and best of luck. We'll check in with you along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
You bet. Jake Grasso, our new esports coach here at Baldwin-Wallace. All right, so we've had 3 great conversations with a couple of different folks tonight. David Shapiro from the Center of Innovation and Growth. We talked with Dominic Perella from our men's lacrosse team, and then, of course, just wrapped up a nice conversation with Jake. Let's take a look quickly at the week that is to come, because we've got a couple of big events on the docket here this week. It includes baseball and softball tomorrow. Softball team is a doubleheader with Hiram, and they're going to be playing at home at 3:30 and 5:30. And the baseball team is hopefully going to play Akron at Akron tomorrow. I'm pretty sure they've had that game scheduled a couple different times, and it just hasn't happened. Bad weather, rescheduling, a whole bunch of different reasons. But hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow the Yellow Jackets are going to play the Mid-American Conference Akron Zips tomorrow afternoon. That's at 2 o'clock down at the University of Akron. On Wednesday, lacrosse and tennis will compete. For the men's and women's tennis teams, it's a chance to play John Carroll. Yellow Jacket men are at home. The women are on the road. And for the lacrosse teams, we talked a little bit about on the men's side, their big match, senior night on Wednesday. The ladies will play at 7 o'clock as well Wednesday night, but they'll be out in Ada to play the Polar Bears out there. This weekend, starting on Friday, the OAC Golf Championship for the men, hosted by Muskingum, but as usual, it's down at River Greens Golf Course in West Lafayette. Saturday morning begins the men's and women's track and field opportunity up at Hillsdale, in Hillsdale, Michigan. I believe it's at Grand Valley State University. No, actually, it's at Hillsdale. I beg your pardon, in Michigan. But that's a little closer to Detroit. Grand Valley is out more near Grand Rapids. But the 55th Hillsdale Relays are coming up this weekend, so good luck to all of our track athletes on Saturday. Mentioned the baseball team. We told you a little earlier, and another reminder here, baseball is playing the number 1 nationally ranked Marietta Pioneers on Saturday. The Yellow Jacket baseball team's top 15 in the country, and this weekend's doubleheader with Marietta will go a long way in determining who's going to be the top seed in the OAC tournament for baseball coming up. So if you can get out there and support the Yellow Jacket baseball team, that would be awesome. Their doubleheader gets underway starting at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon over at Fisher Field here on campus. The men's lacrosse team is going to be in the OAC tournament. We don't know who they'll play yet, but their first OAC tournament game would be a quarterfinal game on Saturday. Softball also has Marietta this weekend. They're going to be down in Southern Ohio for a doubleheader starting at 1 o'clock. The women's lacrosse team is looking forward to a Saturday competition, the OAC tournament at 1 o'clock, but again, their opponent to be announced. Men's and women's tennis teams will compete against Capital on Saturday. The men will be on the road after being home earlier in the week. The women instead will host Capital on Saturday. And then we flip the calendar to next week, where on Sunday, May 1st, we've got a chance to watch the baseball team play not once but twice. They'll play down at Denison, first against Allegheny in a neutral site game, and then they'll play Denison on Denison's campus in Granville. Those games are at 12:30 and 4 o'clock. It's also Sunday of the OAC Golf Championship. Then we'll be back with you on Monday night, 7:30 as usual, for the Athletics Roadshow. I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for tuning in. Please come out and support Mike's Bar and Grill here in Berea. This is one of the cool spots right on Front Street in the heart of Berea Square. They have been so supportive of Yellow Jacket Athletics. We are grateful for their support and hope that you'll consider coming out and supporting Mike's Bar and Grill as well. We'll see you next Monday, if not sooner. Have a great rest of the week. Go Jackets.